English Daily, the podcast.
Your English journey starts now. Good morning, wonderful listeners. Welcome back to the English Daily Podcast. I'm Anna, and I am so incredibly excited to be here with you today.
Hey everyone, Jack here, and I have to say I am absolutely thrilled about today's episode. We have something really special planned for you, and I genuinely believe this could be a turning point in your English learning journey.
That's right, Jack. And speaking of turning points, I was thinking about something recently. You know that feeling when the new year approaches and you make all these big promises to yourself, like, this year I'm going to finally become fluent in English. And then life happens, right?
Oh, absolutely. I've been there more times than I can count. It's like we start with so much enthusiasm, so much motivation, and then somewhere around week 2 or 3, that initial spark just fades away. It's frustrating, honestly.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Consistency is your greatest weapon against stagnation. That's our strategic hook for today, and I really want you to hold on to that idea throughout this entire episode. Because today, Jack, we're not just talking about goals, we're talking about a complete transformation.
That's right, Anna. Today, we're launching our 30-day English Fluency Challenge, specifically designed to make 2026 your best year yet in terms of English proficiency. This isn't some generic advice or unrealistic promises. This is a structured, actionable plan that you can actually follow.
And we're going to break it all down today. Every single day, every single strategy, every single habit that you need to build. We're synthesizing the entire challenge into one comprehensive episode that you can come back to again and again.
And the best part? We're going to make this fun and engaging. No boring lectures, no overwhelming checklists, just practical, real-world strategies that actually work. Plus, we're going to sprinkle in some vocabulary, some reflection questions, and a whole lot of motivation.
So buckle up, everyone. Whether you're a beginner, an intermediate learner, or even advanced, there's something here for you. This is the English Daily Podcast, and this is the episode you're going to want to share with every English learner you know.
Anna, before we dive into the actual challenge, I think it's really important that we talk about why consistency matters so much. Because here's the truth. Most people fail not because they're not capable, but because they don't understand the psychology behind building new habits.
That's such an important point, Jack. And it's something I've personally struggled with. I remember when I first started learning English seriously, I'd have these intense study sessions where I'd study for 4 or 5 hours straight. I felt so productive, so accomplished.
And what happened after those intense sessions?
Oh, I burned out completely. I'd be exhausted for days, and then I'd take these long breaks, and by the time I came back, I'd forgotten half of what I learned. It was a vicious cycle. I was studying hard, but not consistently, if that makes sense.
That makes absolutely perfect sense, and that's exactly what we're fighting against with this 30-day challenge. You see, consistency is your greatest weapon against stagnation. When you do a little bit every single day, you're not just learning, you're building neural pathways. You're creating habits that become automatic.
Can you explain that a bit more, Jack? The neuroscience behind it?
Absolutely. So when you learn something new, like a new vocabulary word or a new grammar structure, your brain creates new connections between neurons. But here's the thing. Those connections are weak at first. They're like tiny little bridges across a canyon. The first few times you use that word or that grammar structure, those bridges are shaky.
But with repetition...
Exactly. With consistent repetition, those bridges become highways. They become solid, reliable pathways in your brain. And that's why studying for 30 minutes every day is actually more effective than studying for 4 hours once a week, because you're reinforcing those pathways over and over again.
Oh, Oh, that makes so much sense. It's like exercise, right? If you go to the gym once a month and try to do a 2-hour workout, you're going to be sore for weeks. But if you go every day for 30 minutes, your body adapts and it becomes part of your routine.
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy. And that's the mindset we want you to adopt with this 30-day challenge. We're not asking you to become a different person overnight. We're asking you to make small, sustainable changes that will compound over time.
And that's why this challenge is so powerful, because it's not about perfection, it's about showing up every single day, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. That's where the real magic happens.
And here's another important psychological aspect, the compound effect. Have you heard of that concept, Anna?
I think so, but can you explain it in the context of language learning?
Of course. So let's say you learn just 5 new vocabulary words every day. That might not seem like much, right? 5 words? That's nothing. But over 30 days, that's 150 new words. Over a year, that's nearly 2,000 new words. And that's just vocabulary. Imagine what happens when you add in grammar practice, listening comprehension, speaking exercises.
That's incredible. I never thought about it that way. Those small daily efforts really do add up to something huge over time.
They absolutely do. And that's the beauty of this challenge. We're not asking you to make massive sacrifices or completely rearrange your life. We're asking you to commit to 30 minutes of English every day for 30 days. That's it. 30 minutes. You probably spend more time than Matt scrolling through social media.
Oh, absolutely. That's such a good point. We all have the time. It's just about how we choose to use it.
So with that understanding of why consistency matters, let's dive into the actual structure of our 30-day English Fluency Challenge. Are you ready to break it down?
I'm more than ready. Let's do this.
Okay, so let's talk about the actual structure of our 30-day English Fluency Challenge. We've designed this to be systematic and progressive, which means each week builds on the previous one. It's not random. There's a method to the madness.
I love that approach. So what does week 1 look like?
Week 1 is what we call the foundation week. And honestly, this is the most critical week of the entire challenge. During these first 7 days, your main focus is going to be establishing your routine and identifying your baseline. This is where most people fail because they skip this step and jump straight into heavy studying.
What do you mean by identifying your baseline?
Great question. Your baseline is essentially where you're starting from. So on day 1, we want you to assess your current level honestly. How many vocabulary words do you already know? What's your listening comprehension like? Can you hold a basic conversation? This isn't about judging yourself. It's about knowing where you're starting so you can measure your progress.
That makes so much sense. And I imagine it also helps with motivation, right? Because if you can look back at the end of 30 days and see how far you've come, that's incredibly motivating.
Absolutely. But here's what else happens during Foundation Week. You're also going to set up your study environment. This means finding your ideal study spot, gathering your materials, removing distractions, and most importantly, scheduling your 30 minutes. You need to decide when you're going to study every day and protect that time like it's sacred.
That's really important, Jack. I know for me, the times I've been most successful with language learning is when I had a specific time set aside, like every morning from 7 to 7:30, I'm going to study English. It becomes non-negotiable that way.
Exactly, and that's the mindset we want you to adopt. Now, let's talk about week 2, the Immersion week.
Ooh, that sounds intense.
It is a bit more intense, but in a good way. During Immersion week, you're going to start incorporating English into your daily life in more ways. We're talking about listening to English podcasts during your commute, watching English videos during lunch, thinking in English as you go about your day. It's about creating an English-rich environment.
So it's not just about the 30 minutes of dedicated study.
Not at all. The 30 minutes is your core study time, but Immersion Week is about extending that exposure throughout the day. And here's why this works. Even if you're just listening to English passively while doing something else, your brain is still absorbing patterns, rhythms, and vocabulary. It's like background learning.
I never thought about it that way. So even if I don't understand every single word, my brain is still picking up on the language patterns?
Exactly. It's like when you live in a country where they speak a different language. Even if you don't speak the language, after a few months, you start picking up certain words and phrases just from exposure. Your brain is constantly learning, even when you're not actively studying.
That's so encouraging. So what about week 3?
Week 3 is what we call the output week. Up until this point, you've been taking in a lot of information, reading, listening, learning vocabulary, but now it's time to start producing English. This means speaking out loud, writing, and most importantly, having real conversations if possible.
I think this is where a lot of people get scared, right? Because speaking is terrifying.
It absolutely is, and I want to acknowledge that fear because it's completely valid. Speaking a foreign language is vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there, and you might make mistakes. But here's the thing. Mistakes are not just okay, they're essential. Every mistake is a learning opportunity.
That's so true. And I love that you mentioned writing, too. I think writing is often overlooked in language learning, but it's such a great way to practice because you can take your time, look up words, structure your sentences carefully.
Absolutely. Writing is like a bridge between reading and speaking. You have time to think, to edit, to improve. It's less intimidating than speaking, but it still gets you producing the language. And during Output Week, we're going to encourage you to do at least 10 minutes of active production every day.
And week 4?
Week 4 is the Integration Week. This is where everything comes together. By now, you've established your routine, you've been immersed in English, you've started producing it. Now it's time to integrate it into your identity. We want you to start thinking of yourself as an English learner, as someone who uses English regularly.
How do you make that mental shift?
Great question. One powerful strategy is to start introducing yourself as someone who speaks English. Like instead of saying, I'm learning English, you say, I speak English. Or even better, I'm working on improving my English fluency. It's a subtle but powerful reframing.
That's really interesting. The language we use about ourselves really does shape how we see ourselves.
It absolutely does. And during Integration Week, we're also going to have you reflect on your 30-day journey. What worked? What didn't? What do you want to continue doing after the challenge ends? This reflection is crucial because it helps you transition from the structured challenge to ongoing sustainable learning.
I love that structure. It's so comprehensive but also manageable. Foundation, immersion, output, integration, it flows so naturally.
We worked really hard on designing this, and the key is that each week builds on the previous one. You can't skip ahead. You have to build that foundation first before you can immerse, then output, then integrate. It's a process, and respect for the process is what makes this challenge work.
Okay, so now we have the overall structure, but let's get really specific here. What exactly are people going to be doing during those 30 minutes every day?
That's a great question, Anna, and I'm glad you asked, because specificity is where most plans fail. They're too vague. So let me break down what a typical day looks like during the challenge. First, we're going to start every single day with what we call the morning review. This takes about 5 minutes, and it's review of what you learned the day before. This is crucial for retention. You see, research shows that the best way to move information from short-term memory to long-term memory is through spaced repetition.
So you're saying that those 5 minutes of review are actually more important than learning new material?
Absolutely. In fact, I'd argue they're more important, because what's the point of learning new things if you forget them? The morning review is your secret weapon. You're essentially telling your brain, hey, this information is important, keep it.
Okay, so 5 minutes on morning review. What's next?
Next, we have what we call the core learning block. This is about 15 minutes, and this is where you focus on new material. But here's the key. We want you to focus on one specific skill or topic each day. Don't try to do everything at once.
Can you give us some examples of what that might look like?
Of course. So on day 1, maybe you focus on common greetings and introductions. Day 2, you focus on numbers and counting. Day 3, you focus on describing your daily routine. See how we're building systematically? Each day has a theme.
I love that. It makes it so much more manageable when you have a specific focus rather than just studying randomly.
Absolutely. And for the core learning block, we recommend a mix of resources. Maybe 10 minutes of vocabulary building using flashcards or a vocabulary app, followed by 5 minutes of listening to a native speaker. Or maybe you read a short article and look up new words. The key is variety, but within structure.
And the final 10 minutes?
The final 10 minutes is what we call active production. This is where you actually use the language. And we have several options depending on your comfort level. For beginners, it might be reading out loud from a text. For intermediates, it might be recording yourself speaking about your day. For advanced learners, it might be having a conversation with a language partner or writing a journal entry in English.
What if someone doesn't have anyone to talk to?
That's such an important question because a lot of people feel like they need a partner to practice speaking. But here's the truth. You can practice speaking all by yourself. Try shadowing, which is when you listen to a native speaker and then repeat exactly what they say, trying to match their intonation and rhythm. Or you can talk to yourself. Describe what you're doing as you're doing it. I'm making coffee. Now I'm pouring the water. The coffee smells great.
That's actually really helpful. I've done that before, and it feels silly at first, but it really does help.
It does feel silly, but who cares? The goal is fluency, and you need to get comfortable making mistakes and looking silly in the safety of your own home before you can do it out in the world.
Now, Jack, I know you also want to talk about the importance of variety in these activities. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. One of the biggest mistakes learners make is sticking to only what they're comfortable with. If you only read, you'll become a good reader, but not a good listener or speaker. If you only watch videos, you'll understand English, but not be able to produce it. Variety is key. So throughout the 30 days, we want you to rotate through different types of activities. One day, maybe you focus on vocabulary. The next day, grammar. The next day, listening. The next day, speaking. Mix it up. Your brain loves novelty, and you'll actually retain more if you're engaged and interested.
And I think it's also important to mention that these activities don't have to be boring. Like, instead of just doing vocabulary flashcards, why not watch your favorite TV show in English with subtitles? Or listen to English music and try to understand the lyrics? Or read an article about a topic you're genuinely passionate about?
That's such a great point, Anna. When you're learning about something you love, the language becomes secondary, and you naturally absorb more. It's not about forcing yourself to study, it's about immersing yourself in English in ways that bring you joy.
I love that philosophy. Okay, so we've covered the daily habits, but what about throughout the day? You mentioned earlier that Immersion Week is about extending beyond those 30 minutes.
Right. So here's what we recommend during Immersion Week and beyond. First, change your phone language to English. This is such a simple change, but so powerful because you're constantly interacting with English throughout the day.
Oh, I did that years ago, and it was a game changer. Even now, I still discover new words in my phone settings that I'd never seen before.
See, it's constant learning. Next, we recommend listening to English podcasts or music during your commute, while you exercise, or while you're doing chores. Basically, anytime your brain isn't actively needed for something else. Another great strategy is to label things in your home with their English names, like put a sticky note on your refrigerator that says refrigerator, or on your mirror that says mirror. Every time you see those items, you reinforce the vocabulary.
That's such a simple but effective technique. And I also love the idea of thinking in English throughout the day, like narrate your own actions in your head in English.
Exactly. The goal is to make English a part of your daily life, not just something you do during a scheduled study time. That's when real fluency starts to develop.
Now, Jack, I think it's really important that we address some of the common challenges that people face during a 30-day challenge like this. Because, let's be honest, it's not always smooth sailing.
That's so true, Anna. And I think the first challenge we need to talk about is what I call the motivation dip. It usually happens around day 7 or 8. You've started strong, you're excited, and then suddenly you're just not feeling it anymore. You don't want to study. You feel bored or overwhelmed.
Oh, I've been there so many times. It's like that initial excitement wears off and you're left with just the hard work.
Here's the key. This is completely normal, and it actually passes if you push through it. What I recommend is having a motivation toolkit ready before this happens. This should include things like your why. Why are you doing this? Maybe it's for your career, maybe it's for travel, maybe it's for a loved one. Write it down and look at it when motivation is low.
And I think it's also helpful to have some easy study activities saved for those tough days. Like, instead of doing something challenging, just watch an English video or listen to a fun podcast. The goal is to maintain the streak, not to have a perfect study session.
Absolutely. The most important thing is to show up, even if it's just for 5 minutes. That's still better than skipping entirely. Now, another common challenge is the fear of making mistakes.
Oh, this is huge. I think this is especially true for speaking. So many people refuse to speak because they're terrified of making errors.
And it's so counterproductive. Here's the truth. You are going to make mistakes. A lot of them, and that's not a bad thing. Every mistake is evidence that you're trying, that you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. Without mistakes, there's no growth. Let me share a personal story. When I was learning Spanish, I once told my teacher that I was embarazada, when I meant to say I was embarrassed. But embarazada actually means pregnant in Spanish. My teacher laughed so hard and I wanted to die of embarrassment. But you know what? I never forgot that word. That mistake was so memorable that it stuck with me for decades.
Oh no, that's hilarious, but also such a good point. The embarrassing moments are often the most memorable.
Exactly. So we want to reframe mistakes. They're not failures. They're stepping stones to fluency. Now, another challenge is time. People always say they don't have enough time.
But we already talked about this, right? Everyone has 30 minutes somewhere in their day.
We did, but I want to address it more specifically, because sometimes it's not about finding time, it's about managing energy. Maybe you're not a morning person, so trying to study at 6 a.m. doesn't work. Or maybe after work you're exhausted, so studying then isn't effective.
So it's about finding your optimal time?
Exactly. Experiment during the first few days to find when you're most alert and focused. For some people, it's first thing in the morning. For others, it's during lunch breaks. For others, it's late at night. There's no right or wrong answer. It's whatever works for you. Now, another challenge is resources. People feel overwhelmed by all the options out there. There are thousands of apps, books, courses, websites. How do you choose?
What's your advice on that?
My advice is to pick one primary resource and stick with it for the 30 days. Don't try to use 5 different apps and 3 different textbooks simultaneously. That dilutes your focus and energy. Find one good resource that aligns with your learning style and use it consistently.
What if you choose the wrong resource?
Then you switch. But give each resource at least a week before deciding. Sometimes it takes a few days to get used to a new format. But once you've found something that works, commit to it. Consistency with one resource beats bouncing between 10.
I think another challenge that people don't talk about enough is feeling alone in the journey. Like you're doing this challenge, but you don't have anyone else doing it with you.
That's such an important point. Isolation is a motivation killer. That's why we strongly recommend finding some form of community. Maybe it's an online language exchange group. Maybe it's a Facebook group for English learners. Maybe it's just a friend who's also trying to improve their English.
Even if you can't find a real-life study partner, you can find virtual ones. There are so many apps and websites where you can connect with other learners. Having someone to hold you accountable, to celebrate your wins with, to complain to when it's hard, that makes all the difference.
And that's actually a great segue into something we want to mention at the end of this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the English Daily podcast because we're going to be providing weekly English lessons to help you maintain your momentum after this 30-day challenge. You're not alone in this journey.
Absolutely. Consider us your weekly English learning companions. We'll be here every step of the way with more tips, more motivation, and more support. So make sure to subscribe, and let's make 2026 your best year of English learning yet.
Now let's talk about measuring progress, because this is crucial for long-term motivation. If you can't see how far you've come, you're going to lose steam. So how do we measure progress in language learning?
That's something I've struggled with, honestly. Language learning progress can feel so intangible sometimes.
I completely understand that feeling. But here's the thing. Progress is measurable. You just need to know what to look for. First, let's talk about quantitative measures. These are things you can count and track over time. Number of new vocabulary words learned, number of hours spent listening to English, number of pages read, number of speaking recordings made. These are all concrete metrics that you can track in a simple spreadsheet or journal.
But isn't that kind of tedious, counting words and hours?
It can be if you let it, but here's a more interesting approach. Use your phone's screen time tracker to see how much time you're spending on English learning apps, or keep a simple tally. Even just noting, Day 1 learned 5 words gives you a record to look back on. But quantitative measures only tell part of the story. The qualitative measures are actually more important, in my opinion. These are the changes you notice in yourself over time.
Like what?
Like, can you understand a TV show without subtitles that you couldn't understand before? Can you express ideas that you couldn't express before? Do you find yourself thinking in English more often? Do you feel more confident when you encounter English speakers? These are the real signs of progress.
Oh, that's so true. I remember when I first moved to an English-speaking country, I couldn't understand anything. And then one day, I realized I was actually following conversations without trying. That was such a powerful moment.
Yes, those moments are what it's all about. And that's why we recommend keeping a weekly journal during the challenge. At the end of each week, write down a few things you noticed. What became easier? What made you proud? What surprised you? Another great way to measure progress is to do a before and after assessment. At the start of the challenge, record yourself speaking in English for 1 minute about any topic. Don't edit, just speak freely. Then at the end of 30 days, do the same thing and compare the 2 recordings.
Oh, that's such a powerful exercise. I can only imagine how motivating that would be to hear the difference.
It's incredible. And the progress might be subtle at first, but it's there. Now, let's talk about staying motivated for the full 30 days. Because here's the truth. Motivation is not a constant. It comes and goes.
So how do we handle those low motivation moments?
First, accept that low motivation is normal. Don't beat yourself up for not feeling excited every single day. That's unrealistic. Second, have a plan for those moments. This goes back to the motivation toolkit we talked about earlier. Your toolkit should include easy activities that still count as studying but don't require much energy. Maybe it's watching a fun YouTube video in English. Maybe it's just listening to an English song and following along with the lyrics. Maybe it's reading a children's book in English. These low-effort activities keep you engaged without draining you.
And I think it's also important to celebrate small wins. Like if you complete 7 days in a row, reward yourself. Maybe treat yourself to something you enjoy or take a day off from studying and just relax. The reward doesn't have to be big. It just needs to acknowledge your progress.
That's so important. Our brains are wired to seek rewards. If you never celebrate your wins, you're running on willpower alone, and that's exhausting. But if you build in rewards, you're creating positive associations with studying. You start to think, I enjoy this because it feels good.
What about when you fall off track? Because inevitably, life happens and you're going to miss a day or two.
And that's okay. Here's the most important thing I want to say about this. Do not throw away the entire challenge if you miss a day or two. This is where most people fail. They miss one day, feel guilty, miss another day, feel worse, and eventually abandon the whole thing.
I've definitely done that before. It's like the all or nothing mentality.
Exactly. But here's a better approach. If you miss a day, just pick up where you left off. Don't try to make up for it by studying extra the next day. Don't guilt yourself into quitting. Just continue on as if nothing happened. One missed day is not a big deal. Quitting is.
That's such an important reframe. I love that. Okay, so let's wrap up with some final thoughts on making 2026 your best year yet.
Anna, can you believe we're already in 2026? This is the year, right? The year we've been working toward.
I know, it feels like just yesterday we were talking about 2025 goals. But here we are. And honestly, Jack, I feel more optimistic about this year than I have in a long time. There's something about a fresh start, you know?
Absolutely. And I think that's why this 30-day challenge is perfectly timed. Instead of making vague resolutions like, I'm going to get better at English, you're committing to a specific, actionable plan. You're not just hoping for improvement, you're designing it.
And I really want to emphasize this point. This is your year. 2026 can be the year that you finally break through that plateau you've been stuck on. The year that you gain the confidence to speak to native speakers without fear. The year that you open doors to new opportunities because of your English abilities.
But here's the thing. It doesn't happen automatically. You have to commit. You have to show up. You have to do the work, even when you don't want to, especially when you don't want to, because that's where the magic happens.
And we're here to support you every step of the way. Remember to subscribe to the English Daily Podcast for your weekly English lessons. We'll be right here with you, providing guidance, motivation, and companionship on this journey.
That's right. Think of us as your English learning cheerleaders. We'll be celebrating your wins, helping you through the tough days, and providing new strategies and insights to keep you growing.
So here's your call to action. Today, right now, commit to the 30-day challenge. Tell someone about your goal. Set up your study space. Schedule your 30 minutes. And then, starting tomorrow, show up every single day. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard.
Because consistency is your greatest weapon against stagnation. And in 30 days from now, you're going to look back and realize that you became the English speaker you've always wanted to be. Not because you're a genius, but because you showed up.
That's it for today, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on the English Daily Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with anyone who might benefit from this challenge. Let's make 2026 our best year yet.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep speaking. This is Jack, signing off.
And this is Anna. See you in the next episode.
Now, before we go, let's break down some of the key vocabulary and phrases from today's episode. This is an important part of your learning, so pay attention. First up, consistency. Consistency means doing something regularly over a period of time. Consistency is your greatest weapon against stagnation. Can you use consistency in a sentence, Anna?
Sure. I've been studying English with consistency for the past month, and I've already noticed a big improvement.
Excellent. Next word, stagnation. Stagnation means a period of no growth or progress. Consistency is your greatest weapon against stagnation. Another example, without regular practice, your English will reach a state of stagnation. Next, compound effect. This refers to small changes that accumulate over time to produce significant results. The compound effect of daily practice is incredible. Can you think of an example, Anna?
Sure. Learning just 5 words a day might seem small, but thanks to the compound effect, that's nearly 2,000 words in a year.
Perfect. Next, immersion. Immersion means surrounding yourself with a language as much as possible. Week 2 is the immersion week. Another way to use it, total immersion is one of the fastest ways to learn a language. Next, baseline. Your baseline is your starting point or initial level. We want you to identify your baseline. Example, before starting the challenge, I assessed my English baseline. Next, spaced repetition. This is a learning technique where you review information at increasing intervals. Spaced repetition is crucial for retention. Another example, I use spaced repetition apps to memorize vocabulary. Next, active production. This means actually using the language by speaking or writing, not just consuming it. Active production is essential for fluency. Example, reading is passive, but speaking is active production. Next, shadowing. Shadowing is a technique where you listen to a native speaker and repeat what they say, trying to match their pronunciation and intonation. I practice shadowing every morning. Another example, shadowing helped me improve my accent significantly. Next, motivation dip. A motivation dip is when your initial enthusiasm decreases and you feel less motivated. The motivation dip usually happens around day 7. Example, I experienced a motivation dip in the second week, but I pushed through. Next, all or nothing mentality. This is when you believe that anything less than perfection is a failure. Avoid the all or nothing mentality. Example, I used to have an all or nothing mentality about studying, which made me quit easily. Next, plateau. A plateau is a point where you stop making progress despite continued effort. Many learners reach a plateau after a few months. Example, I was stuck at an intermediate plateau until I changed my study method. Next, neural pathways. These are connections in your brain that form when you learn something new. Consistent practice creates strong neural pathways. Example, the more you practice, the stronger those neural pathways become. Next, sustainable. Something sustainable can be maintained over the long term. We want to build sustainable habits. Example, cramming isn't sustainable. Consistent study is. Next, vulnerable. Vulnerable means being open to being hurt or making mistakes. Speaking a foreign language makes you feel vulnerable. Example, it's okay to feel vulnerable when you start speaking English. Next, accountability. Accountability means being responsible to someone for your actions. Having an accountability partner helps. Example, my friend and I hold each other accountable for our study goals. Next, reframe. To reframe means to change the way you think about something. Let's reframe mistakes as learning opportunities. Example, I reframed my fear of speaking as excitement. Next, tangible. Tangible means something you can touch or measure concretely. Progress can feel intangible, but it is measurable. Example, I wanted tangible evidence of my progress, so I kept a journal. Those are our key vocabulary words for today. Make sure to practice using them in your own sentences. That's how you'll truly internalize them.
Now it's time for our reflection questions. These are questions we want you to think about and perhaps journal about as you go through the 30-day challenge. Grab a pen and paper or just think about these in your head. Question 1. What is your primary motivation for improving your English? Is it for career advancement, travel, personal enrichment, connecting with friends or family, or something else entirely? Take a moment to really dig deep and understand your why. Question 2. On a scale of 1 to 10, how honest are you willing to be with yourself about your current English level? Remember, identifying your baseline accurately is crucial for measuring progress. Question 3. What is your biggest fear or obstacle when it comes to learning English? Is it speaking, listening, grammar, something else? Acknowledging this fear is the first step to overcoming it. Question 4. How can you protect your 30 minutes of study time? What will you say to friends, family, or colleagues who might distract you? How will you handle days when you're busy or tired? Question 5. What resources do you already have available for learning English? Make a list of apps, books, websites, videos, or people who can help you on this journey. Question 6. Who can be your accountability partner? Is there someone who will check in on your progress, celebrate your wins, and support you during the tough days? Question 7. How will you handle a missed day? What will you tell yourself, and how will you get back on track without guilt or self-criticism? Question 8. What does your ideal English-speaking future look like? Can you visualize yourself in 6 months, 1 year, 5 years from now, communicating confidently in English? Question 9. What is one small change you can make to immerse yourself in English beyond your 30 minutes of study? Maybe changing your phone language, watching English videos, or labeling items in your home? Question 10. What reward will you give yourself when you complete the full 30-day challenge? Remember, celebrating your wins is an important part of staying motivated. Take your time with these questions. Write down your answers if you can. This is your journey, and understanding yourself is the first step to success.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the English Daily Podcast. This was a longer, more comprehensive episode than usual, but we wanted to give you everything you need to succeed in the 30-day English Fluency Challenge.
We really poured our hearts into this one, and we hope you feel empowered and ready to take on the challenge. Remember, consistency is your greatest weapon against stagnation. Show up every day, even when it's hard.
And don't forget to subscribe to the English Daily Podcast for weekly English lessons that will help you maintain your momentum after the challenge ends. We're committed to being your ongoing learning companions.
If you found this episode helpful, please share it with anyone who might benefit from this challenge. Let's spread the motivation and help as many people as possible make 2026 their best year yet.
This is Jack reminding you that you've got this. Your English fluency journey starts now.
And this is Anna saying goodbye for now. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep speaking. See you in the next episode. Your learning journey doesn't stop here. Keep improving your English. Click the next video or explore more episodes we've picked just for you. See you in the next lesson.